Very much so. Automatically, everybody of a certain age, generally men of my age, assume I write bodice rippers. That it's the next 50 Shades of Grey, because there's romance in my books, which is so far from the truth, it's kind of scary. And you just smile and laugh it off. So that's just from Joe Public. Then in the literary world, there is a dismissal of women who write fiction, particularly contemporary fiction. We never get reviewed. There's a wonderful push this year to review women 2015. Last year it was read women, this year it's review women. We get dismissed, we're beach reads. Now, don't get me wrong, I love being a beach read, but at the same time, it takes an awful lot of work to write an easy read. It takes as much work to write an easy read as it does many times to write a literary book. Having said that, it doesn't take me 12 years to write a book. I'd love to take 12 years to write a book, but I write a book every year. So, people dismiss that because you are kind of a journeyman. You're there all the time, always writing. My advice would be, it's not a rush and it's not a race. I'm a really good example of that. I'm not saying everybody has to wait quite as long as I have, but I've always wanted to be a writer. It's what I have stated from the earliest of ages. It's in the back of my high school yearbook. It was what I focused on as a sideline through university. I really wanted this, and I was a much better writer when I was in university. I wrote 3/4 of a novel for my university thesis. My professor gave me her agent's name to send it off, and I didn't. At 22, my skin wasn't thick enough to take the criticism that comes at you as a writer. It's not only readers that don't like your books that will criticize you, it's the fact of publishing that, even if your editor likes your book, they're going to take it apart. And forget the editor, the copy editor will take your prose to shreds. And, it kind of goes on like that. And at 22, I think I was far too vulnerable to do that. And also looking back, the books that I wanted to write even then, and the books that I write now, I didn't have the life experience. And that adds an awful lot into what I want to say. Because I think one of the important things as a writer is it's not just telling stories, it's having something else to say behind those stories. What do those stories add? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a cracking adventure story that doesn't have a heavier theme to it, but I think knowing yourself as a writer and what you want to say is very important. So I'm eternally grateful that I didn't get published until I was 49, and if people didn't like my book, tough luck. I'm published, it doesn't really matter. So don't rush the process. Take the time to become the best writer you can be. And sometimes, in fact not sometimes, it definitely means failing, and failing a lot. But to just take it on the chin, pick yourself up and keep writing. Because if you want to be a writer, it's about failing and keeping writing, and failing and keeping writing until the success finally comes. There's two different things going on there. I do think that critiquing another person's work strengthens your own, because you see the mistakes that you yourself make. But you have to be in a very trusting relationship. I have a fantastic critique partner. We both need different things. And I can go through her work with the same intensity that I go through my own work. And that's very hard. I mean, I do track changes and I'm brutal. What's going on here? I'll write in the script. I'm totally out of the, you said the same thing 5 times now. That sort of thing, because that's what I do with my own work. On the other hand, I was Skyping with her this morning saying, I don't know what my conflict, goal, action, everything else. And she just ran through that with me. And many times I'll send her snippets and just say, is the voice right here? And that sort of thing. And she's really good with the bigger picture, which is what I need. I don't need somebody necessarily to go through and pick out words with me and things. Whereas she's got a fantastic voice in her writing, she's much clearer on that, but she needs me to work with her on the structuring and the physical words of her thing. Reading is so important to writing. It is the most essential thing you can do, aside from putting your own words on the page. And it's important that you read the good and the bad. So you completely have a full, I want to use small c, Catholic diet in reading, because you need to read the generalist populist fiction like Dan Brown to find out why people are glued to it. You know, without being offensive to him, it isn't the best prose in the world, but my goodness, it's a fantastic read. I mean, you just don't put the book down, you can't, so you need to learn from that. At the same time, you need to read literary fiction to find out what's so beautiful about that and what you can glean from it. I read also, especially more now than ever, I read a lot of history books, I read a lot of biographies. And again, not only am I gaining research information there, but you know, they still have to tell a story. It's still a narrative and a story has to be told, and you need to learn from that. So, all the time. But what happens is, normally when I'm in the full throes of writing my own work, I don't actually read in my own genre. That's when I tend to read, you know, the Agatha Christie's or the literary fiction, because I don't want it to influence, that's the word I'm looking for, my voice, because that's very important to me and to my readers. So I don't want that corrupted as such. Obviously my voice will change the more I read and the more books I write, but it still has to ultimately be me. And I'm still enough of a baby author, even though my 4th book comes out in June, that I could be influenced by somebody else's writing. And yes, there are times when I just sit there and think, why can't I write this well? You know, but that's good. That's really positive to have that desire.